Thank you very much for staying with us. You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue on 97.3 Citi FM and on Citi TV as well. We're also streaming live on Facebook. Join us with your thoughts, your comments, and contributions. Our WhatsApp numbers are 0549 986 996 and 0204 447 Let us know what you think, what you make of the Vice President's speech. And of course, send them in. We'll read them out for you. Dr. Adusa Kodia is an economist. He's joined us via Zoom. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, my brother, and good morning to my seniors in the studio and the viewers.
How you doing, Doc?
I'm good.
I'll start off with you. You being an economist, and look at the feasibility of what Dr. Bawumia has been saying with respect to abolishing some taxes, including the tax on electronic financial transactions, popularly known as the e-levy, the betting tax, emissions levy, and all that. As for the VAT on ECG, we know government has suspended it, so we can push that to the side for now. But knowing that we are still under an IMF program, and by 2025, we will still be under that program, how feasible is this promise by Dr. Bawumia?
Well, I think that they have done something similar before. In 2017, when they came in, we were still under an IMF program, and they still abolished a number of taxes. What we didn't see in that budget was a contingency plan to make sure that government doesn't lose on revenue generation. And so I think that mistake, they might have learned from their mistakes, and that even if they succeed to abolish these taxes, they must have a contingency plan so that we can raise enough revenue. So yes, it is feasible. It shows that they have listened to Ghanaians. I listened to Guta president, and he was so happy about his speech because he says that these are the very things they have been asking government to do for them. And so, I mean, with respect to having efficient tax regime, which, comes with the flat rate and compliance and etc. I was also happy that, of course, Dr. Bawumia listened to a number of Ghanaians who called for the abolishment of e-levy and the bet taxes, etc. My position on e-levy. I've always said, I've written even an article on it. I won an award on that article that e-levy is a good idea, but it was poorly designed because it didn't sit well with the objectives. The objective of raising revenue from the informal sector wasn't how it was designed. So if they abolish it in its current form, but redesign it in such a way that we can leverage digitization to tax the incomes of those in the informal sector, that should be a way of getting enough revenue without necessarily, reducing revenue in the budget. But we are an IMF program, and you make reference to the IMF. I must state that the IMF have changed. They've changed the way they do things since 1990s. In the past, they used to dictate specifically what countries must do, and they face criticisms from economists like Stiglitz and Jeffrey Sachs. And after the 90s, they have changed their modus operandi. They no longer dictate specifically what you must do, but they recommend. And so in most of the cases, you see a recommendation, the policy reforms, you should do this, you should do that. So the simple answer to your question is that, yes, there can be abolishment of these taxes next year if Dr. Bawumia wins, and it will still be under an IMF program. But according to the IMF, they are talking about fiscal consolidation, just now between revenue and expenditure, and slow down the rate of borrowing. How you do that is up to you. So if you think you can abolish these taxes and still be able to meet the target of raising revenue and narrowing the gap between expenditure and revenue, then you're on course, as we have already demonstrated by achieving over 70% of the fiscal consolidation in the year 2023 alone. So what are some of the areas? Of course, if you look at a tax regime where they may abolish e-levy, but if you leverage Ghana card digitization and other data, you must get a data to collect the revenues from the informal sector, collect revenue from property tax, it will make up for the loss. The rent tax, if we put all house owners or landlords on the digital platform and the tenants pay through a digital means, and then once you select why you are paying, you say I'm paying for rent, and maybe the rent is 10%, it is taxed. This will make up for the loss, the perpetual loss in the revenue. So that we have to leverage digitization. We have to find a contingency plan, and the contingency plan is also outlined in the vision under the fiscal performance. And I like your question because most of it are not. We talk about the fiscal performance. The major problem confronting this country is the fiscals. It's the same fiscals that made our debt unsustainable. It's the same fiscals that made us lose access to the capital market. It's the same fiscals that took us to the IMF program. And let me give you these statistics. Between 2006 and 2023, the public debt has grown by more than 10,000%. Within the same period, domestic revenue has grown by just 4,000%. So in other words, there's a huge gap of 6,000% between revenue and debt accumulation. So what is it telling you? It's telling you that over the period, as a country, we have been more interested in borrowing than raising revenues domestically. And it's the reason I am so happy about the vision that Dr. Bawumia put out, that we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results. We should look within and mobilize resources domestically. It's the same point that I know Franklin Kujo will remember. I have been saying this anytime on the same platform. Domestic resource mobilization, IMF is preaching it. You lost access to capital market. The reason they gave for our downgrading was our inability to raise enough revenue. In fact, you can even succeed in borrowing, but you still have to come home to raise revenue to service your debt. So as for internal revenue generation, we cannot overlook it. And I am happy that almost everything that Dr. Bawumia said is centered about the fiscals, leveraging digitization to raise enough revenue. And that is the way we should go, to reduce wastages, reduce corruption, and get enough revenue, and also manage it efficiently.
Very well. He also mentioned introducing a friendly flat tax regime. What structure or form, in your view, should this take?
Well, I think Guta has always been making those type of recommendations to the government. And I think when you're listening to Dr. Joseph Obeng, anytime I hear him, he mentions two things, and I agree with him. The first one is the compliance. The compliance, enforced compliance. Make sure that, like I said, we leverage the digitization. Now we have Ghana Card, which gives everyone a unique identification. So you cannot run away. Everybody should be more or less forced to pay what they're supposed to pay. The next one is the next point that Guta has always been hammering on is the simplicity of the tax regime. That the tax element must be simplified. I attended a conference, and one of the things that came out was the definition of the tax. Maybe GRA may have a different definition, the customs may have a different definition, and then the people who are supposed to pay, like Guta and other business organizations, also have a different definition and interpretation of the specified tax. And so you cannot have different interpretations of the same tax when you want to raise revenue. And so the simplicity, let's simplify it, let's define it clearly, let's interpret it the best way that everybody will understand, the payers and the collectors will understand, so that if you have the compliance and the simplicity working together, we are likely to have even more revenue from taxes without necessarily increasing the tax rate or introducing any new tax element. And so this is the best way to go. And let me tell you something we studied in the lecture room, level 100, level 200 economics. I know Honorable Hussein, you remember your macro class, that the tax multiplier effect on GDP is negative. Tax multiplier effect on GDP. So the more you increase taxes, the lower the GDP. However, the expenditure multiplier effect on GDP is positive. So this is the reason we collect tax. You collect tax which is negative on GDP and give it to revenue, to give it to government to spend it prudently, so that the positive expenditure multiplier will outweigh the negative tax multiplier effect on GDP. And that is the reason when you are designing any tax regime or tax element, you must clearly define it and implement it effectively to the extent that it will not bring in any additional cost. Simplify it, make it easy to administer, very easy to administer, less expensive to administer. In Norway, they file taxes online. In Uganda, Rwanda, Rwanda, they file taxes online. This is what Dr. Bawumia is preaching, the simplicity of it. Let's file our tax returns online, make sure that everything is simplified, compliance is enforced, and we get enough revenue without necessarily introducing new taxes or increasing the tax rate. This has always been the plea of Peter, and it has been the plea of those of us in academia.
Very well. Thank you very much, Doc. Let me go to Franklin. Franklin, abolishing e-levy. This will be music to your ears.
Well, I mean, there's a part of me that actually is asking that who actually implemented it. And I understand quite clear from what the Vice President was trying to say that it was not put to it. That's fine. But you see, you inherit assets and liabilities of any government, especially when that particular issue is at the heart of your training and the fact for which you've been touted to be the whiskey who can solve everything. E-levy, particularly, if we look at the conversations that we had, were very difficult. And as Dr. Sarkodie actually says, I mean, we did a survey and found out that about almost 90% of Ghanaians were against it entirely. So those times, I'm not saying you should have come out to condemn it at the time, but at least just listening to you would have been useful. Well, now he says until he gets power, he's not able to do that. But now that he has power, he'll be able to do that. E-levy has eaten into our savings and decimated some of our livelihoods. If you add that to the draconian debt exchange that we had, right? So all these things have gone on, and for some reason, we didn't hear much from him. Well, he says he's likely to be your retribution. We hope so. But on e-levy, and again, probably on the taxes level, I particularly am happy about the flat tax issue because, see, the flat tax really, obviously is graduated. And I remember the countries like Estonia. I was on a panel with the former Estonian Prime Minister when he was extolling the virtues of a flat tax regime. And I was really happy to hear, right? But dating back to flat tax, by the way, again, another anecdote I need to share. I was actually driving the former finance minister who passed, Bawumia. When he was education minister, by the way, we were doing a project. I was representing a high school from the States. We're building computer labs throughout the country. We're traveling to his hometown, and then we stopped by some orange sellers and then asked them what they do with the leftovers. They said, well, it just gets rotten, and they complained about the tax system, the duties they were paying as well, even at that level, at the markets. And so we got into a conversation because by then I had actually known this Estonian example, and I said, so what can we do for these people? I said, well, we could also introduce a tax. So we got into conversations about a flat tax regime. Not long, the finance minister actually imposed a 3% flat tax for businesses whose annual threshold was about 100,000 cities today. At the time, it was 10,000 Ghana cities.
Right.
And it worked for a while. So I think the flat tax thing can be graduated, and as Dr. Sarkodie says, it obviates the need for all this confusion around input, output, VAT, and all this VAT nonsense, really. Because I mean, frankly, I am not a supporter of VAT at all. I think VAT is like a vampire that draws blood from our system. And the more you introduce it, look at what they're trying to do with the VAT thing on electricity.
Yeah.
That was just a wicked way. But by the way, did you know that one of the reasons why the VAT thing was incidentally introduced actually tells you the precarious nature of our situation?
Yeah.
So that, as I said earlier, we are an economic war, and let's not belittle it at all. That they were at sea as to what to do, and decided that maybe, let's look at VAT on electricity. You know, the next thing that may have happened, maybe VAT on walking, VAT on breathing, VAT on, doing external things that you do. And then as a human being, you would have come to a complete stop. I mean, that wouldn't really help. So the tax thing was a useful thing. And I think the other point he makes about this public sector, public-private sector collaboration to
Collaborations, yeah.
big ticket transformational project like roads and fine. Not that they are new, but he needs to probably give teeth to it. Exactly what percentage? Is it 70, 30, 80, 20? Because my good friend, Honorable Inusa, not the young man, explaining, but my good friend, the fellow land economist and all of, he knows that clearly speaking, when you do this public-private sector participations, sorry, collaboration, you need to be careful of chronic capitalist arrangement because that's where the politician gets either sucked into the deal with some arrangement, and then he needs to lose a bit of it. The roads may not be done properly, but the private sector guy may have taken a chunk of the money away, and then he has to look at procurement of those issues because the public sector cannot carry the burden of everything. I feel angry anytime I hear government politicians say, "Oh, we did this, we did that, we did that." With whose money? And then you don't even take care of it. When you do a public-private partnership in the manner that it ought to be done, these would be seen as what? Maintaining not just the roads, maintaining the hospitals. Yes, people may say that they may charge us a bit, but that's where the power of the public sector comes in. You can regulate and induce some form of regulation to ensure that there are social safety nets that can be done. I trust the private sector. Well, by the way, not the entirety of the private sector we find ourselves here, because some of them are just arrangers of deals and then they just cream off the money and then do nothing with it. But I trust the private sector that is intelligent, that is learned, that is collaborative, futuristic, and development oriented to ensure that Ghana's development going forward will not be unduly burdened by the state. Let me just give you another few examples. And this is why I find Dr. Bawumia also not talking about retribution and accountability a bit annoying. Because you see, some of the things that have gone on, in spite of the Bank of Ghana wholly indisciplined behavior of creating a fiscal hole of 60 billion Ghana cedis in our economy. And nobody can be thanking the Bank of Ghana for doing that. Thank the Bank of Ghana for doing that is unfair, it is uncritical, and it is annoying. But you see, if we look at a ministry like the Special Initiative, which took almost all the monies that we are talking about, the $1 million per constituency. Look at some of the dams that were built, right? I sent guys to the northern part of Ghana to go in. You should see the videos. Atrophy, how not to spend a country's money, wasted people's money and potential, and nothing was done. Why are the other initiatives that were undertaken, right? So when the state does these things, the state tends to lose a lot of money and we don't see. So the public-private partnership thing is not new. It needs to give teeth to it. And by giving teeth to it, it should have assessor generals at the Office of Government Machinery, not all these boys and girls running around as assistants to about 14 assistants to a particular ministry. Complete waste. Put assessor generals there, thinkers who can tell you that if you want to undertake this big ticket transformational project, this is how much it should cost you. These are the avoidable pitfalls, and this is how you save money for government. If you did that, you do well. Perhaps the point to also add about the procurement. Under this administration, almost Imani, we did an assessment of 1,000 procurement-related contracts that over the course of time. I mean, from the dying days, from the NDC days up to now. I can tell you the assessment, the value is on our website. 70% of all the contracts did not pass muster, per the late rules that we laid for ourselves. At some point under this administration, 85% of transactions were not going through the Give Me system, right?
Wow.
So you ask yourself, if you are dealing with corruption is not about somebody putting money under the pillow. Well, of course, if you cream of procurement, that's why it ends up anyway. it either ends up in a how do you call it, water tank, or it ends in the buried as a human being that has lost his soul. Whatever it is, the process of procuring is our number one enemy.
Right.
You know why? Yes. I thought you give me a little time. I don't want to
No,
speak
go ahead.
again.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. You know why at some point my good friend the president publishing this whole thing about value for money and then procurement having been doing well better than the NDC days. You know why? Because there were no metrics. You know, at some point, I saw some of those billboards. I was laughing at myself. I said, "Why are we doing this to ourselves? Who told you that by publishing a bill or even creating a ministry of procurement without sub procurement, it never helps? That's why that ministry was quickly abandoned, right? Procurement is our number one enemy. So if anybody is promising a public-private partnership approach to dealing with infrastructure-related issues, I say add value for money and add the fact that you are going to have assessor generals who assess the thing before they go to PPA. But PPA too can be problematic. All these entity boards that are created within the various ministries sometimes are very, very, very unhelpful. You know how we found out that the Electoral Commission's addition of 83 plus 15 and said it was 103? You know how we found out? So we found out through the Entity Tender Committee a report that the Electoral Commission itself had set up to procure biometric machines for the 2020 election. People did not understand why we were against the EC at the time. People thought we just didn't like Nanado, we didn't like MPP. It was what we saw. Basic arithmetic mistakes. They were not even basic. If you look at the tabulation and the fact that the Entity Tender Committee itself was rigged, right? The people who were there were not qualified for it at all. In fact, somebody finished law school, the following day was put on the tender committee report. Those are astronomical, astonishing, right? And then passed those multi-million-dollar projects for buying needless machines. Something else we found. I'm just telling you that if we don't do this partnership work and allow the private sector in a very proper arrangement to help develop this country, almost all the projects any government would undertake with so much money from the public sector will go to waste. It will definitely go to waste because they will either take cream off too much and then the rest will not help us at all. I thought as well that the whole conversation about the and by the way, another anecdote. You remember the vice president set up a committee. In fact, he did set up a body to have a conversation about value for money. I remember at that meeting, I told him that, Chief, I told the people there that this thing will not work. It's not about conferences. It's about actually going into the details of the project and looking at where we can script, we can do. There are so many, even the way the project itself is designed must be looked at critically again. When Nanado said, my procurements have done better, when you look closely at the various procurement deals that were done, yes, it's true. Most of the procurements may have gone through the necessary, especially those that competitive tender processes. But the values of those competitive tendered ones pales into insignificance when you compare it to the big tickets, bigger ones which go through procurement. How do you call it?
That
The
went to
sole
sole sourcing.
source, right? And that is our nemesis. We need to fight that. I also thought when the vice president talks about the what's it called, the his promise to whatever 50 ministers and all of that. Well, there have been a few questions, by the way, and those are legitimate questions he's been asked. That his own office has about 24 so staffers. You know, I then again, the Office of Government Machinery, if you want to fight corruption, by the way, look for this article, Google it. We published it on the when the current government came to power, I think 2017, January or February first week. Fighting corruption and waste starts from the Office of Government Machinery or starts from the presidency. Why? Because almost all the big guys, big tickets, big projects are actually housed there. You know, the Ministry of Special Development Initiative has been dissolved, right? But its ghost, its children, orphans are actually lying at the Office of Government Machinery, drawing money as we speak, which is why the Office of Government Machinery would have a budget of 100% even in 2024 when we are supposedly in an austere situation. So when Bawumia talks about the 50%, 50 ministers, and by the way, John Mahama promised 60. He is promising 50.
50.
And I've asked them to tell us exactly how to go about it. I can give a few examples. I was in Australia not long ago, and I saw they told me that they merged the ministries, the departments of fisheries, agriculture, and I think land into one entity. Somebody has asked me, an economist asked me, oh, but those people can afford. We are just starting. Can you imagine? You rather that you are poor, you want to splurge and waste, but the person who has already managed it and done much better and probably running at 12th or 13th largest economy in the world and is doing so, you say he should go ahead because he can afford to do so. No, we can't. So merging ministries will be useful and there will be a few ideas to be shared going forward.
Right.
But I thought, and I seriously thought that the whole idea of not and taking on board the fact that there were certain grave sins that were committed and wasteful projects like the cathedral, suspicious $1 million deals in telecom and whatever revenue assurance monitoring system. Did you know, my brother, that we are still paying $5.5 million to a company to be monitoring telecom revenues from 2017 up to now? Today we still pay, but you've never seen a single report as to whether telecoms are stealing money or not. Why are we doing these things to ourselves? So I thought Bawumia would also say that, look, I'll be your retribution. I'll be your recompense. Because some of the things that have gone on, I don't like it.
Right.
I think if threw a few things there would have helped. But all in all, well, I am saying he could have said there were avoidable mistakes. And I don't want to go on that path. So tell me what you don't want to see in
my government.
happening in my government. That would have probably helped him quell this whole confusion about I'm not in the captain seat, I'm a driver's mate, I'm a passenger. I only hold the mirror for the cameraman. No. Those things don't help.
Right.
Better to I don't want to see these things happen in my administration. Come and help. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much, Franklin. Let me come back in studio. Honorable Inusa, I mean, we have been complaining about the taxes. The government promised to move us from a taxation economy to an industrialized economy. But then they dropped taxes on us. Now the vice president says, vote for me, let me take away some of these taxes. Vote for me, let me reduce ministers of state and their deputies to 50. Is this not good news?
Oh, since I spoke, Honorable
I mean, I'll be coming to you. Since this is your
this is your issue. That I needed to react to what he said first, and then now he's having
you want to take
time.
reactions to everything he says.
Not everything. Not everything. I didn't say everything. I didn't say everything, but some of them. I mean,
briefly,
you need to.
Briefly.
You need to.
I'll indulge you briefly.
You indulge me, and then he has to stand, and then you come back to me.
So you could have allowed me to speak.
Because I can't break
when then you do the reaction, you do the rebuttals. No,
that means
you
you're
do the
going to come back
rebuttals.
at everything.
I don't have rebuttals.
No, I didn't say everything. I didn't say everything. Even for me, I have a lot of
You're
things
letting the question.
You are projecting.
You are letting the question. You are letting the question you ask.
Let's have Is it not good news to have the vice president say, vote for me? When I come, I will abolish e-levy, emission levy, betting tax, and so forth.
And you believe him?
You don't?
Ghanaians don't believe him.
You're sure? The
You
delegates that
move
made
the
him flag
economy.
there are Ghanaians.
You move the economy from taxation to production. Who said that?
The MPP government.
Bawumia said that. And you have imposed a raft of 40 taxes on Ghanaians since you came to power. Who will believe you? You said the money was here and then Sarkozy said, well, he believes what Bawumia said is what we are looking to. I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked. Because he said these things. He said that the money is here. And everybody who has done some development economics,
Sarkozy believes in the digitalization and the
what
flat
I'm saying is
tax
that
regime.
Sarkozy says internally raising resources is the way to go. I agree entirely with him.
Domestic revenue mobilization.
Listen, I agree entirely with him. Entirely. I mean, I, as a former minister, can tell him that when you raise revenue internally for development projects, they become cheap. You execute them at a cheaper rate. Because when you borrow money, you pay interest.
Interest, yeah.
Okay? So I agree with him. But I don't believe Bawumia can do that.
Why not?
Because he said he will do that. He said the MPP government will do that. They've not done that. So why should I believe him?
Because he was not in the driver's seat. Now he's asking
Don't
you
bring
to put
that
him in the
driver's
seat.
seat in. That driver's seat is a betrayal of the mandate of the people. It's a betrayal of the mandate of the people. You say that we elected you into office, and because we elected you as vice president, you couldn't act. And you think that we should elect you as president, so that when you fail to act, you say you were scared by the ghost of Nana Akufo-Addo? We won't do that. But let's come back to the situation as it is today.
Yeah.
What is our situation today? Our position today. Our position today, and I agree entirely with Simon. What is his name? Franklin Kujo. You see, I thought that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia would have come and engaged us in an adult conversation. Adult conversation. We are all. I mean, when you are given a leadership position, even in our homes, and your subjects as a chief are not satisfied with the way you are presiding, you are ruling them, and they don't know, they might not know. So you come and engage, you leave everything, you leave the propaganda aside, you leave the theatrics aside, and engage in an adult conversation. We are in a junk status country.
Yeah.
How did we get here? Ghanaians want to know. We've never gotten here. Now we are there. How did we get here? But we didn't tell us. We're all worried. Because we are in a junk country, status country, we ran to the IMF. The IMF said, yes, we will help you. But before we do that, as leaders of your country, first of all, your citizens must suffer the pain. Your citizens must go through some pain. Yes. Why? The president said, we are going to do debt exchange. But nobody will suffer a haircut. The president said that. Oh, you didn't hear that? How did it change? It's the IMF who said, go back and tell your citizens. You said your citizens will not suffer a haircut. But before we assist you, your citizens must suffer the pain of your recklessness and mismanagement. So go back. Never in the history of a country has government instruments, and you are an economist, you know it. Never in the history of has a government bond become so uncertain, so risky. Why didn't they tell us why it happened? Now, you have your senior citizens who have labored for this country, suffered, put money aside because they know that when they reach the age of 60, they have to go on compulsory retirement. Never mind Emishadai, who is 60 and still working.
I had a feeling you were going to go there.
Never mind, without a contract, never mind. But we put money aside because when we are 60, we are supposed to rest, create an intergenerational shift so that the young people can take over. That's why we put money aside. Now, when you, yes.
Are you 60 when you're in?
No, I was not 60. I left Parliament at 60. That's why I said that I had appreciated that there was a generational change. No. I left Parliament. I was not 60 when I was in Parliament.
So you will not take any public office going forward?
No. If I was to take public office, they would have given me an excuse, a leave to do. I needed the Constitution says so. I didn't say that.
You'll be given a contract.
That's why I believe that even when you read the constitutional provision carefully, it should not be an ex facto ratification of the contract. Because if not, it will be abused. Because the Constitution provides the criteria for extension of contract of persons who have reached the retirement. But if there's going to be ex facto ratification, that is subject to abuse. Okay? So that's my position. Then force a Chief Justice, a former Chief Justice of the country, to come out and call government decision stupid. We have not been told why we were led into this stupid decision. Then everybody is talking about debt distress. Yeah. You were in Parliament. You remember Fiscal? The period I was in Parliament with him, more than 70% of our activity in Parliament was approving loans. At a point in time, we raised issue about the loans that we are approving. And you know you cannot enter into a debt distress situation if you don't take loans. You know that. Sarkozy says, whereas our debt profile has risen by 10,000%, our revenue profile has risen by only 6,000.
No, 4,000.
4,000. So there's a gap
of 6,000.
And if you are borrowing money, everybody knows. If you are even an individual, a natural person, and you are going around like a Okonko lending, you can only put strokes on the wall You know, things fall apart.
And cross them out.
And cross them out. And when the data comes, you say, well, look at that long stroke over there. That, I owe that man more than I do to you. But he has never come to wake me up in the day to ask me of his debt. That means you are bankrupt. That's what Okonkwo's father was called an Agbala, an old, frail woman.
But Okonkwo proved himself, moved from the status of slack to a very prosperous, with his yam.
So you see,
Okonkwo moved away.
So Ghana should wait for Okonkwo.
No, he's situating it in a context.
Right.
So I'm putting it properly.
Franklin and Co. I didn't hear Sarkozy. Maybe he was also worried that we were reaching a breaking point.
Yeah.
Ghanaians had even started a movement by taking signatures to restrain government from taking federal loans. Yeah. We were not then in IMF. There was no cuvette. There was no Iran.
Russia, Ukraine.
Ghanaians were very much concerned that at the rate at which we were contracting loans, we will enter a debt distress situation.
Yeah.
The Bawumia has not told us why. Nana Akufo-Addo even boasted that he will continue to take loans. Then we have corruption. Today, even ministers can keep money under their beds and no retribution. I mean, they can only be commendation. We hope that at the end of this day, you come out clean. But we know that when you find a public officer with unexplained wealth, Article 284(4) says that if he's unable to provide a reasonable explanation, he will be deemed to have acquired that in contravention of the Constitution.
Right.
Then it's a public office. We know his or her remuneration. We know the privileges they enjoy and all those things. So why hasn't government dealt with that? I already referred to the PDS. I'm talking about the situation in which we are today. You remember just recently, Nana Akufo-Addo, the president, had caused to refer SML, the delusion talk, for investigation. Franklin Kujo says we are still paying huge amounts for monitoring the telecoms. Under which government? Why this arrangement? You know, me and you, since this government came into power, food inflation.
So you think he not having taken responsibility for some of these things in his speech means that he will not be able to fulfill the promises he's made?
What is leadership about? When we say a person is a leader, what does it mean? Service and what? Taking responsibility. Taking responsibility. As a leader, if you are incapable. So when we were confronted with Dumso, in the 2015 State of the Nation address, John Dramani Mahama admitted that Dumso was causing a lot of havoc on the economy. He admitted, he accepted responsibility for that and told Ghanaians that he would fix it.
But Dr. Bawumia did explain the impact of COVID-19 and Russia, Ukraine on the economy.
I've just told you. Oh, you didn't hear me? That even before COVID and
Russia, Ukraine
war, Ghanaians were already alarmed at the rate at which we were contracting loans and said that we will come into the situation in which we are today. So how then can you blame COVID or Ukraine Russia war for the loans that we have taken and our inability to pay? How can you blame them? So you see, truth is very important in matters of this nature. And engage in telling guys, we know that as even individuals and persons, sometimes we take decisions thinking that they will work out well. They fail. You have to reflect over the decision you have taken and see the pitfalls, the places that you made a mistake, and change for the better. Tweak them to see whether you can come out of your precarious situation. This government is not prepared to do that. How can you, a flag bearer, not admit in a 73-page speech that you know that things are not going well for Ghanaians?
Right. Hussein is itching to speak. Hussein.
Yeah. Nana, I think that your time allotment today, I have a problem.
He
with
wants to
it
speak
because,
first. He wants to speak first.
not because I want to, but
No,
because
was-
when you went round, I was expecting that I got the opportunity to react to some of the issues, and then my big brother gets a second bite. It's made my whole. But anyway, let's go on. When Honorable Inusa was speaking the first time around, he did bring out certain points that I want to react to. In fact, the issue of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and what caused his father's death, I don't think that Honorable Inusa is in a better position than Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to say what exactly caused his father's death, no matter how close he was to the father. And I'm not ready to sit on a platform like this to discuss that. And I think that we should treat those issues with some level of, I don't know, but we should treat it with some level of respect. Thanking the delegates. I am pretty sure that post the election of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he's had numerous occasions to thank the delegates of the New Patriotic Party.
But not on the platform like what he was on last Wednesday.
Numerous. I am sure that if even at that event, he went on to recognize appropriately the people. I mean, you saw how unified and the face the party showed at that event. Almost everyone that mattered, but the President and Minister of Finance who were out of town, everyone who mattered was there. So even in his opening salutations, if he had decided to, I mean, it would be just so confusing for such an event. And so some of these things, I think that it is important that he does that, but he's had opportunity to do that on so numerous, so we could move on from there. My good friend and my political party mate, lawyer, Apia Dankwa.
Former.
He says former. No, but you have no political roots in where you
But
are.
he's
You
with
have
the
a
movement.
movement. You have a
Listen.
movement. What's
Former.
this movement about? He talks about transforming the economy. And that that's a role Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia assumed. And so he had expected that if he is looking at models like what happened in Southeastern Asia, and Dr. Sarkodie mentioned the Stiglitz models and all of that, which is a gradual movement from the agrarian to industrialization to services. So that's a very simple model that you have. But you see, in 2017, when we inherited this economy, we were told that the economy we inherited, the meat had been chewed to the bone.
No. This statement was made in 2013. When,
The meat
what?
had
No.
been chewed to the
Again, so that statement was made in 2013.
Had been chewed to the bone.
I don't know you to be
That-
also dishonest.
That was
I don't know you to be dishonest.
that was the economy we inherited.
No.
And you cannot transform an economy which meat has been chewed to the bone. When we inherited this economy,
2013.
when we inherited the economy, we inherited an economy where the economy was growing around 3% GDP. Agric growth rate negligible.
You know,
Industrial-
the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, has debunked this. He says it's just propaganda.
Oh.
The MPP insists
Are you now
inherited
debunking?
MS.
Are you now?
No,
Why,
I'm just
when he
putting
was
this
when he
across.
was making his statements, you allowed
No,
him to
I'm just
flow.
putting this across.
No, I know what I'm talking about. So I think that you should allow me to also make my point, just like if I allowed my other
Go ahead.
panelists
So
to
what's the
make.
point?
Oh,
So
what's my
what-
point?
That there was no
My
money
point.
to
My
transform.
point is that
There was no money to transform.
in the of course, I mean to transform the Stiglitz or whatever model you want to use, you first have to be self-sufficient in food, produce enough to feed yourself. Then you can produce to feed industry, and then that is the basis for industrialization. And then you move on to services, and that has been the model that the Southeast Asian countries used. And I don't know whether it was the same transformation of the economy that you are speaking about. But my point is that when your agri sector is not growing significantly, when you have not finished feeding yourself, when you have not finished fixing fundamental fiscal issues like our revenue generation, it's a huge matter. And Honorable Inusa knows. And he won't tell me that this is from 2013 when His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, in his last State of the Nation address, had told us that total government revenue is sufficient for 3 line items: remuneration for public sector workers, payment of our debt and its obligations, transfers to statutory funds, and there was nothing left. There was no physical space in our budget to do anything else. How do you transform an economy where you have no physical space in the budget? So Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says he had taken on a role, formalize the economy. By formalizing the economy, look, one of the things, and let's be very, coming into the studio this morning, I thought of something. See, even me, much younger than Honorable Inusa, when I did common entrance in 1987 and O-level in 1982, you know how we're selected to go to secondary school in 6th form? Headmasters from across Ghana will gather at Accra Girls. There's your scorecard there. So the headmaster goes around and picks the forms. This is the people I want to pick for Presec. These are the people I want to pick for Expert. Today, 500,000 students finish BEC. You cannot use the same system. So we need to be upgrading our systems over time.
Computerized placement.
Over time. And those are crucial things that we should do. Even talking about national service. The numbers that graduate from university every year now, I know of institutions where national service people go and they run shifts. Some have no desk. Every year they come, I want to do national service at Parliament. I want to go to this bank. There are so many of them. If you don't take your appointment letter early enough for endorsement, or if you don't use other routes, you cannot get in there. So these are realities, and these are issues that we should be fixing. And let me tell you some of the things Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is done. My very good party tradition mate wants to see transformation in the economy. But before we can transform, we need to grow our Greek.
Yeah.
We need to feed ourselves. Where are we in the production of staples like rice? What have we done from 2017? And Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia set out to give the record of the government that he's been part. He's never run away from the records or the performance of this government. He's never run away from it. You can say
But
whatever.
this particular speech suggested so.
Oh, he's not. He spent an hour talking about the performance of this government. He spent an hour of the 2 hours that he spoke. 1 hour was spent talking about this government and the records and achievements of this government. How can you say he's running away from it?
Exonerating himself from
He never sought to exonerate himself from blame. And what blame? What blame are you talking about? In any case, people are talking, and I've seen that people setting the agenda, and then Franklin told that route he should have apologized and all of because wrongs have been done. I will sit here and tell you that, look, government has had to contend with difficulties. We have had to contend with difficulties. You can get tired of us explaining how we got here, but we will keep explaining it. We will keep mentioning in our life history, even for Honorable Inusa. I am not sure that he can recollect a time when he experienced total lockdown of certain parts of this country. He didn't. He didn't. And not since the Great Depression. In the 30s, have we experienced the global economic crisis that we have had to go through. Just when we're coming out of COVID. I am trying to explain the difficulties that this government had to go through. So you can decide to say wrongs, and so we have to apologize. For me, I see that the government had been faced with difficulties. We were in Parliament together when COVID struck.
Wrong.
We were in Parliament together when COVID struck. Parliament had to do things to ensure that, and the president
the whole world
did
had
make
to adjust.
Of course. And so when you look at the performance of this government, you have to place it in context. In context, that this government has had to face the most difficult situation. The most difficult situation, perhaps in the history of Ghana. The most difficult situation in the history of Ghana. And then you can compare our record to what the other party did whilst we were in power. Talk of COVID. Beyond COVID, we had to contend with energy capacity payments. We have to contend with the cleanup of a banking sector that the NDC negligently supervised. That alone cost us over 21 billion. And all of this, when you put it together, we have had to incur
billion.
expenses over 50 billion to fix these issues. Over 50 billion to fix these issues. So you have to put that in context and not say that we have done wrong, so that we need to come and apologize. Well, that's how you may say it. But I will tell you that, look, truly, this government, we have been faced with challenges that we have been able to surmount to a large extent.
Based on these challenges.
Before 2020, yes, of course. Before
We are still under the program, the IMF program.
Oh yes, we are under the program, and so far, I will say so very good, because we have hit all our targets.
No, you have not.
We have.
No.
We have hit all our
IMF
targets.
just issued a country report.
We
They said
have
that we are still under
hit
debt
all our
distance.
targets so far.
What the targets? What
We
targets?
have hit all our targets.
What
All our
targets?
targets are set out under the program. See, before COVID struck, you're not talking about a record between 2017 and 2019. We admit structurally, since Mr. Apia Dankwa wants to talk about the structure of the economy, structurally, we all admit there is something fundamentally wrong with the economy, and we need to change the structure. That is why when we came into power, we did bring out very bold policies, one headed by Mr. Lanche Mantin, to ensure that we are able to industrialize this nation. At least, if we are not even able to produce for the export market, if we've not gotten there, that stage of transforming our economy, at least let's produce what we consume here.
Is this the 1D, 1F you are referencing?
Of course, I am. Supervised by the leader of the movement for
Has that been successful?
Has that been successful? I'll say that we appreciably we have performed. Appreciably, we have performed under the NPP. I don't know what the movement for change and Mr. Lanche Mantin will want us to believe about his performance in that sector. But I will say, appreciably, we have performed there. But that is how you transform an economy. That is how you change the status. And so you can decide to say whatever you want, but I think that, look, there are fundamental things that have happened in this economy. Like Dr. Mahmoud, before this NIA whole issue came up, and I understand people have challenges of acquiring Ghana cards and all of that.
Wrap it up for
But
me.
you
Let me
see,
pick Andrew's thoughts.
there is something stuck that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said. Prior to us putting in place the NIA and system, that now we want to use your NIA number as your TIN card, as your Senate card, as everything. Those are all fundamental that you have to put in place. The number of people who had TIN numbers, as previously when you had to apply to the GRA to get a TIN, were 4% of adult population.
Right.
By just transforming the database that you have built from NIA, it moves it to 85%. No wonder. I registered a company not too long ago. Every month I am sent a text message from company's house or registrar general. From registrar general. I receive notes from GRA reminding you of your tax obligations and all. This is where we've got into.
Right.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then there was no system like that. So he has concentrated on putting in place some of those systems so we could formalize our economy. We could give our economy a very good footing so that the economy could expand. And that has been his concentration. And that is what it's been as a vice president. I wish and pray that this election is about two candidates. That's what I believe.
But there are
That's
more
what I
than two
believe.
candidates, actually.
The two front runners. Let me come back to the two front runners. I know.
We'll come back and look at the two of them.
I just want to make.
We'll spend some time on the two of them.
You keep saying time, but we are 2/3 through this program already. We only have an hour left. See, I wish that the way Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was able to explain his role as a vice president. I'm expecting that one day we also hear from former President John Dramani Mahama that when he was vice president, what were his achievements and what was he able to use the office to the benefit of
Very well. Very well. Andrew.
Yeah. So my brother Fusani here has just given a manifesto as to why
Oh, sorry.
Oh, please.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia made a point that this is just his vision and priorities. The party itself is going to come out with a full-fledged manifesto. So it is just,
Point noted. Point noted. Andrew.
My senior brother Fiscal here has just outlined beautifully, articulated very beautifully, a manifesto as to why we should not vote for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Rather.
Yeah. Because see, he made this point and he made it very well. That His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia could not do the job, as in the job of transforming the economy, as in the basis for which we elected them into power. Because Nana Addo came on the back of the
but he explained
no,
why.
No, I'm coming. You understand? And then when they were in power, Nana Addo gave Dr. Bawumia the job of transforming the economy. And he says that
he said he decided with the blessing of the president.
listen, so
That
yeah,
was exactly.
he said, I was asked by the president, at paragraph 65, I was asked by the president to assist in solving some of the problems that were inhibiting the transformation of Ghana's economy. My approach was to help formalize the economy through digitalization, as stated in our 2016 manifesto. Now, my brother here is saying that there was no way this.
The matter is not between
Oh, I
me
beg
and
you. You had your. You see,
Can you please allow him? So
when you're speaking, I could have interjected. Exactly. When you were speaking, I could have interjected. He's saying that.
I feel pained.
No, listen.
Please allow him. Andrew, carry on.
You don't feel pained. My senior is here, and I'll. You see, Aristotle said that law was reason, free from passion. I think that principle ought to also apply when it comes to policy. It's not about emotions. It's about reasoning. And you yourself, you said here that there was no way Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was going to achieve the job, the purpose, the reason why we, the people of Ghana, chose him as our vice president, because there were dry bones. Now, he says he wants to be president. He's promised a vision that can only be achieved if there's transformation. And we are in a worse, far worse economic situation now than when he failed to do that job. Failure for which he's giving a reason that the bones were dry.
So now the bones are even more dry.
So the whole business does it. So what business? There are no bones at all. So what business does His Excellency have in putting himself up for president? I'm coming. If you said it. I'm not. Listen. When I came here, see, when I was going to make my argument, I was not going to go on the tangent of dry bones.
Yeah.
But you are saying that the reason why that Dr. Bawumia could not transform the economy was because the bones were dry. Now he's talking.
I'm not said so.
I beg you. You see, when you are speaking, I beg you are the moderator. You are the moderator.
But you did mention. Mention that all the meats had been chewed off.
So there was no way.
I didn't say that.
There was no way.
The transformation. You have to start from a point.
Yeah.
No, come in.
All right.
You can attribute statements to me.
No.
When I'm sitting right here,
you said the bones were dry. You said the bones were dry.
That's true.
Granted.
And that's a statement made.
Isa, can you allow him to land?
Right.
Can you allow him to land? Andrew, please go
Now, secondly,
briefly.
Secondly, you see, the job to transform the economy was given to Dr. Bawumia. Now, what that meant was that Dr. Bawumia was going to give direction in how we spent money, in how we raised money, in how we levied taxes. You understand? Towards achieving the transformation agenda that was placed under his watch by the president. Dr. Bawumia was going to give direction in terms of who we chose as the head of our monetary policy based on this same transformational agenda for which he woefully failed. So you see, he cannot run away from the fiscal, especially the fiscal, in terms of how the fiscal was applied towards the transformational agenda. Now, we need to understand that money is important. Money is important. It's not true that there was dry bones. It's not true. Because in 2022, when His Excellency Dr. Bawumia made that fantastic speech at Kaswa, during the TESCOM program, he enumerated monies that the government has spent. He himself mentioned some 50 billion that was spent on the bank reform and also and the energy capacity issue, 50 billion. Now, when you talk about the banking cleanup, I think the Cabinet Depot himself has called for a massive audit into how that 25 billion was spent. Because the problem at stake, I think, it was about 9 billion. You understand? So you say you spend about. Listen, please, listen here. You can't do this. When you're speaking, I have so many issues with you. I kept quiet. I beg you. You understand? You see, the clause that was about 9 billion. Kwame Ejiofor himself, who wants to lead Bawumia's campaign, said is calling for an audit. On that 25 billion. Now, the decision to borrow and spend was their decision. Let's recall that in 2017, we were at an IMF program. It's right that what IMF program does for you is to give you stability.
Yeah.
It gives you a breathing space, a fiscal space. You understand? What did they do with it? They kept on going to the international bond market almost every 3 months. Those monies, how did they expend them? Because you could easily have expended those monies in transformational programs. What money did they spend on 1D, 1F? Because in that 2022 April presentation, His Excellency said that he spent 2.1 billion on NAPCO, and they chose to spend about 400 million on 1D, 1F. They chose to spend about 400 million on one of the most transformational programs, and so what was he talking about here? Secondly, Honorable Lanchemanten, you understand, put together a comprehensive 10-point industrialization agenda. That if a program which if the government has shown commitment, and Biden said, you show your commitment by where you show your money. You show your commitment by where you show your money. You understand? If government had shown their commitment to those programs in terms of expenditure there, you understand? You have the Vice President is talking about formalizing. It is right that when you are formalizing, there are 3 issues. One, registration and as in being visible and being able to tax. 2, you're talking about building the enterprises. 3 is about how accessible they have financing. Because there are 3 things that kill the informal sector. You understand? Now, the MPP government, in terms of as in taking into consideration our demographic, taking into consideration what kind of institutional support and with actual as in show of expended money in trying to legalize or help people to register their companies.
And I'll come back to you.
You are being unfair with me. No, you are being unfair with me in terms of the timing.
I know.
You've given about 20 minutes.
No, forgive me.
You are being serious. You are being serious. You've given just about 5 minutes.
I know. That's why I say I'll come back to you. I need to take a break, but I'll come back to you and then you can finish it up. This is the big issue. We are live on 97.3 Citi FM and on Citi TV. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is the big issue here on Citi TV and on 97.3 Citi FM. Just before the break, Andrew was on the floor, so to be fair, I'll just give it back to you.
Yeah, thanks. So I was questioning His Excellency Bawumia's claim in attempting to formalize the economic, and I'm saying that, listen, when it's right, that when you are trying to formalize an informal sector, you look at the 3 issues that plague them. One has to do with the legality in the first place. So then here you are talking about their registration, and if they are not registered, they are not even known to the state. So then you can't even tax them. 2, about the enterprise itself. In terms of the size of the enterprise, the corporate governance, the structure of the enterprise itself, what kind of institutional support are you as a state granting to them? And 3, you are talking about access to financing. And that also isn't there. So when you are dealing with formalizing the informal sector, you need to deal with these 3 issues. Now, I want them people should tell is that when they went around every 3 months, taking 3 billion, you understand? How much of those monies did they expend in this proper formalization drive in building the capacities of our small and medium-scale enterprise? Especially so when you see we understand that this informal sector, in this very weak economy, provide about 65% of all jobs in Ghana. So that if you are really committed to transformation, you pay more attention in terms of your commitment, proper commitment, not in terms of this, what's called digitalization, proper formalization. You get the picture. So clearly, we've had a vice president who's failed woefully in the transformation agenda. The 10-point transformation agenda that was wrong. How much money did they expend there? Because you were talking about the automotive industry, which is a part of the what's called the strategic anchor sector. Yeah, government should tell us how much money did they expend there. What was government's investment there? You have to take the ingenuity, the creativity of Honorable Alan Chamartin. The automobile industry we are seeing them because of the power of his policy. Now, the government should tell us how much money have they spent in we getting the automotive sector. How much money have they spent in building SMEs? You see, and also we are talking about. He said that there was lack of money, but you have the power of policy. Beyond, if the same thing government has is the power of policy. Now we are talking about. He said he's talking about agric. Now we also know that in transforming an economy, it means that you also need to transform how agric is done. You are there talking about fourth industrial revolution, throwing that into the eyes of how can you graduate from zero from because you see it has to move from when industrialization started. It started first of all with mechanization. It started with mechanization, went to electricity, went to computers, and right now we're talking about digitalization. You understand? Now you can't, but you see, you need all four. You need the mechanization. How mechanized is agriculture? We are still practicing subsistence farming. Meanwhile, transformation is simply moving your energies, your resources from low productive ventures to high productive ventures. His Excellency Dr. Bawumia should tell us what they did in terms of policy to shift agric. Because he said that still because of a certain trajectory, you need to solve agric before you go to industry, before you go to this, and that's why we have not been able to transform. The point simply is this: His Excellency Dr. Bawumia lacks credibility because of how he's failed woefully at transforming the economy, the job the president gives. He's failed woefully. So when he comes and gives us a vision, you understand? A vision, he says he's talking about a certain big tent, where a vision that can only be realized if the economy is transformed. Well, because essentially his vision, the vision he put out, it can only be realized if the economy is transformed. You've been given an opportunity to transform the economy by the president.
But is that not what he's doing with his digitalization drive?
So let's take it. So let's the economy with his digitalization. You have a situation where the economy is even worse now, with all the monies that has been expended there. The economy is worse now. It's less now, and this is not even a matter that we can even debate about. The economy is worse now than he came to admit it. And they've destroyed the economy beyond that. Because right now, he himself said it. The fundamental principle was that the safest place to invest your money was government bonds. Is the same. Right now we are in a situation where we don't trust. So the next government won't have access to those government bonds. The next government was very creative because the only kind of funds available to him will be from the how he gets private capital. You understand? And how you get the ability to get private capital will depend on your own credibility. And that's why the credibility of the candidate in this election is very critical. Because you must be credible. Now you are presenting to us a candidate who's lost total credibility. He doesn't have credibility.
You think so?
I'm telling you so. You understand? I'm telling you that he himself. So we have had a lot of debates, and he's extricating himself. He didn't extricate himself. He himself said that the president asked him to transform the economy, and based on the state of the economy and what passed market. And my honorable here is telling that he could not undertake that transformation exercise because there were dry bones. Is that what he's saying?
So based on that, he's lost credibility?
But he has failed to transform the economy. But what's the state of the Ghana economy now? It's not worse than in 2017. So if the person given the responsibility by the president to transform the economy has failed woefully, he brought up woefully in terms of the state of the economy, in terms of even governments, the use of their own fiscal policy. I'm telling you that how much money did they spend? Because when I talk about fiscal policy, you are talking also about how you spend your money. How much money they spend
that's
in
what he's explained, that despite being given the work to do, where he was placed was just an advisory role.
Come on. The Constitution says that. You see, the Constitution says that. You see, this job I'm talking about is not his job as the head of the economic management team. But now himself is saying the Constitution says that the vice president has two responsibilities. The one, first of all, the one given to him by the Constitution, and to the one given to him by the president. Now the president told us that Bawumia is the one who's going to lead his transformation agenda. Bawumia himself, in his speech, is saying that the president asked him to transform the economy. That's what Bawumia is saying. And I'm saying that if that is the case, then he was the one giving direction in terms of our fiscal policy and also our monetary policy, because the two of them, which is really the role the government plays in the economy, must be in line with that transformation agenda. You understand? And now, honestly, are we not in the problem we are in now because of a massive failure in fiscal policy? Have you seen a monetary policy like we see now, where one of the fundamental taboos in monetary policy, the printing of money, see like extent of the print of money that's happened. So there's a monumental failure in terms of how the economy has been managed. And Bawumia is saying that he was the one given the responsibility to lead the transformation agenda. And there are so many basic questions like, how can you justify why you spend 2.1 billion on NAPCO? How can you justify how you can spend 2.1 billion on NAPCO and 400 million on 111F? What was the purpose of NAPCO? If it was to create jobs, it is right that if you want to create jobs, then you must pay particular attention to your small and medium scale enterprises. Because the industrialized countries where there are abundance of jobs, because you saw AI, the reason why AI is so critical for the West is because there are more jobs than human beings now. There are more jobs. Now, why are there more jobs? There are more jobs because they deliberately built their small and medium scale enterprise. You will go to America. President Dwight Eisenhower, he wasn't an economist, he wasn't a lawyer, but he had the wisdom, the presence of mind to put in place the Small Business Act, which created the Small Business Agency. And this stroke of ingenuity, leadership, has created a situation where in America, the small SMEs are creating jobs like nobody because there's institutional support, there's financial support. How can you justify why in Ghana, our vice president, the person into whose hands our transformation agenda was placed, would decide to spend 2.1 billion on NAPCO and 400 million, about 400 million on 1D1F? Yes, and that's what I'm saying, that clearly, because of the monumental failure in how the economy has managed in total, the monumental failure in the direction of our fiscal policy. Because right now, you said we are dead distressed because we want to take money and we didn't direct the monies into productivity, because that's transformation. You direct them from low productive sectors to high productive sectors, but they didn't do so. Massive failure. So yet we borrowed a lot of money. The formalization right now, what's the tax to GDP ratio in terms of the tax hasn't increased, because after spending so much money on digitalization, at least if we are not even seeing SME, we should be seeing an increase in the tax to GDP ratio. Have we seen that increment? So there's fundamental failure. So then what business does Dr. Bawumia have to put himself up for the presidency in this country?
I want to make a very quick intervention.
Quick one.
Very,
I need to go to Frank.
You see,
quick one.
Apedankwa wants us to believe that the economy today is worse than what we need. But the data does not show that.
We'll come to that. You wait.
Let's look at let me just we'll come to that.
No.
Let's talk about the data. He's talking that he's saying that the economy today is worse. It is important because that is not what the data supports.
This comparison
if you look at
the
economic growth,
so let me go round and come back. When you have your bites, then you can do this.
Before 2017. Every industry,
What
you
the-
look
what
at
the- what the
that's
growth
not
rate
the industry growth.
No, what the growth rate?
Depreciation of the city.
No, you shouldn't say blanket statement.
I am saying that.
No,
I am
what
saying
is the
that.
growth
There
rate
should
of the
be
economy
right
now?
up to
Just to prove this.
2017.
What
the
I'm saying is
economy
that-
was growing
Fuseni,
at an average of
Fuseni,
3.5%.
3.6%.
Within
It was
2017,
Fuseni, hold yours. Hold
No,
yours.
I'm saying-
Hold yours.
No,
I'll come to
between-
you.
no.
I'll come to
That
you.
is
I'll come to you.
that's
Hold
a
yours.
reality.
When I come there, you can give us the
That is
figures
a
and the
reality.
percentage.
I
I
can
don't
give you
want-
year by
I
year.
don't want- I don't
Year
want
by
grants.
year.
I don't want-
He
you
has
see-
made a statement.
see,
That is
understand?
not supported by
Fuseni.
the data.
Honorable.
That's what I'm saying.
Hold on. Please hold on. Hold on.
We shouldn't
Hold
mention it.
on. Hold on.
If you say
Hold
we
on.
shouldn't mention
Hold
it,
on.
that's
Because
fine.
you are mentioning
Fuseni,
data.
that's fine.
You are mentioning
Honorable,
data, but
data
you
is
do not
here.
put any figure to what you just said.
The data is what I'm mentioning.
but
No,
Honorable,
you didn't put any figure to
Honorable,
what is the current growth rate of the
What is the
economy.
current growth rate? What's the you mentioned 2016,
my way.
and then you are saying
I
that.
have made a point.
Please,
I have made a point to you.
we are not small children.
Honorable,
here.
honorable,
You mentioned
honorable,
2016.
please hold on, please hold on.
You mentioned 2016.
Hold on, hold on.
And you are saying that between 2016.
Hold on, Inusa, hold on. Hussein,
No.
Hussein,
No.
Hussein,
Fuseni,
Hussein,
you have your
hold
mind.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on.
Honorable, you have your bite. You have your bite. Take your time. Honorable, you have your bite.
So if we are going to compare, then we should compare based on the data and the figures.
I'll compare you.
Hold on. I'm going to Franklin.
You don't do that.
What I'm saying, and then you accept, is that the data does not support that statement.
Hold on.
That's the data I'm providing.
No, you are not providing the data.
That's the data I'm
Even
providing.
version
The data
2016.
does
Hold
not
on.
support.
Let me go on to
You get a chance.
Franklin. Oh, Fuseni, please. Franklin, so we're looking at 2024 being an election year, and the tendency of the government to overspend, and of course its impact on the economy. How are we expecting the government to behave? And judging from all the promises Dr. Bawumia is making, will he be able, to fulfill them when he takes over as president in 2025?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure he's made any grandiose promises because he's much aware. Some of the big ticket transformation projects that locally will be made, he's not made some of them. We are yet to see the manifesto. But as far as the last, how many days ago's presentation is, I don't think he made any big spending projects per se. But I think the question you asked is very trite, which is, how will the government that is taking us through a debt exchange program behave in an election year? Truth be told, I don't think they've got too much fiscal space right now, which is why, as I said, they are obviously looking at other ways of raising revenue, including even taxing electricity, which has been suspended by the way. So it will be difficult to see. In fact, I don't know where the money will come from, but in politics, money comes from all sorts of places during an election. It could even come from our side, which is one of the things our cousins at CDD have been dealing with, campaign financing. We need to be very careful about money coming from our side. I'm not saying just the current government, the current administration will do that alone, but all political parties must respect the source of funding. I fear that a lot of money may be coming from outside for this election. If it's for the government, I don't think they have so much to spend around, except, of course, a lot that has gone to the office of government machinery. I keep saying that office is a bit wasteful. It's actually quite wasteful. And so, maybe they'll have some money to play around with. But in terms of big projects, starting projects, I don't see where the money is going to come from at all. It will be difficult. But as I say, I think campaign financing will be the issue we need to be careful about. Because, as governments come in, there are certain projects they undertake you never understand. They don't make sense. They'll tell you they're using it to pay bills to people who sponsor them. I know a few. I don't want to mention that. Inisa will come after me. Hussein will come after me. He knows what I'm saying is true. Look, it will be difficult. It will be really difficult. Most of these district assemblies don't even have funding right now as I speak. So I doubt we see projects springing up like confetti around. I don't think so. But there'll be a lot of, doling out of cash here and there, which obviously we'll never know the source. And that's what I fear most. In fact, we did a study not long ago on the state of organized crime in the country. And some of the issues we found out was that some of these illicit ways of bringing money into the system come through the ports, and a host of them, something we were actually handed over to Bawumia, by the way, and for which it took action for close to a month. Don't know what the situation is right now. I've not studied the approach yet, but I think for that one, it took action, and there was some irregularity as to what should be done. I think that is where the conduit for washing money will be coming from, and I fear it's going to be quite a lot, both ways, by the way.
Right. Thank you, Franklin. Dr. Adu Sarkodie, let me come to you and find out what potential challenges is the government likely to face in ensuring fiscal discipline, especially with the oversight of the IMF in an election year?
Well, the IMF in drafting their policy and making the projections, they took into consideration the fact that 2024 will be an election year, and usually, as we see, in the country. We overspend beyond, what is targeted for us or we state for ourselves. And so in the wisdom of the IMF in the implementation of the program, they made sure that a larger part of the fiscal consolidation was achieved in the year 2023. I mean, if you work the math, it's about 70%, which has already been achieved in the year 2023 alone. And that is why in the budget and also in the IMF program, you see how they describe it as large fiscal consolidation. So the year 2023 has accommodated about 70% of the fiscal consolidation, which was earmarked for the entire 3 years and which has already been achieved. The government is recording positive primary balance, which are all positive indicators. So even if we go into the election year of we're already in election year 2024, the targets and all the things that we have set for ourselves as a country, IMF believes that Ghana can meet the target. They have already accommodated the excess expenditure in the election year, which is expected, and they have already accommodated that. They have made allowances for that in the target that is set for the government. I am just praying. I mean, you mentioned the challenges. I'm just praying that we still stay within the target. So even though the IMF projections in the program has already accommodated the extra expenditure that we may, or as a government may incur in the year 2024, we should try not to go beyond it, because the last thing we want in this country is for us to miss the targets and also miss out on the bailout. I'm saying this because, you see, the economy is now recovering. As the minister said, we are turning the corner. I mean, turning the corner just simply means it's showing positive signs. And compared to the time that we went to the IMF program, a lot of the variables are showing positive signs. Growth is showing positive signs. Inflation is declining, exchange rate is declining, etc., etc. And so we cannot reap the full benefits of the program today when the money itself is being given to us in tranches. So the economy will fully recover when we have completed the program and when we have gotten all the monies or the financing of it. Therefore, we should try as much as possible as a country not to do anything to jeopardize the IMF program. We all saw how our Citi was depreciating, was one of the worst performing currencies at the time that we were going for the IMF program. We should not try to get to that point. Even if you listen to the BOG governor, they reduced the policy rate by 100 percentage points. And one of the things that the media asked him, well, why can't you reduce it further? He said that we should try to consolidate the gains and make sure that we do not disrupt the already positive signs that we are seeing. So the message to government and all stakeholders that we should try to consolidate the gains that we have made so far in terms of making sure that the economy recovers and not to overspend, and we have to be disciplined and we don't have to go beyond the target that we have set ourselves to jeopardize the IMF program. If the IMF program is put into jeopardy and they withdraw, our economy will sink again. Right now, we are riding on the wings of the IMF, the World Bank, and others for those support. We need that support. We need the IMF program. We should try to discipline ourselves, stay within the target, stay within the means, so that we will still have them with us next year, 2026, and therefore the economy can fully recover and we can be on our own after the end of the program. But we should also not forget that the program, IMF program, is just for BOP support and macroeconomic stability.
Right.
And in every economy, BOP support and macroeconomic stability is not an end in itself. It's a means to achieving what every Ghanaian is looking for, what I am looking for. And I think my brothers in the studio, they have talked about transformation. That is what we are all waiting for. The economy to grow and transform and create permanent jobs. This is the end of everything. So stability, BOP support, IMF program, they are all means. They are all a means to achieving a transformed economy that can create jobs. This is what we call a resilient economy. And this is the economy that we are all waiting for to see in the year 2025, 2026 going. So we should be disciplined. We should be fiscally disciplined and not jeopardize the program.
Very well. Thank you, Doc. Fuseni, this transformation that we are all looking for, given our current situation, is it possible under Dr. Bawumia in 2025?
Before I even come there, I was trying to make a point earlier that the economy today, based on the data that we all see, whatever matrix you have to look, if you look at how we have grown the economy from 2017 up to now, notwithstanding the difficulties or the challenges we have had to contend with, the economy today, averagely between 2017 and 2022, we have grown this economy at 4.9% per annum. We inherited an economy that was growing between 2013 and 2016 at 3.9%. Even some of the data, I mean, given the depreciation of the Citi between 2013 and 2016, the Citi was depreciating at an average of over 17% per annum. Between 2017 and 2022, we managed it much better at 10.75%. Given, I would have wished that the Citi did not depreciate at all. But let's compare our records. What we have been able to do, the New Patriotic Party, and what we inherited in 2017. And those things are clear. So it's very difficult for me to hear that we cannot transform because the economy is in the worst position. The economy is in a better position. But certain structural defects have to be fixed. We go back to this transformation thing and whether we're able to transform this thing. There are models, and whatever models, and Apia Dankwa has espoused the model very, very clearly. You release, first of all, you bring efficiency in agric. Subsequently, through mechanization, you release excess labor to industrialization, you feed yourself, you produce excess whatever raw material for processing, you bring out jobs. That's how you create jobs. And those models are bound. For us, as to whether we'll be able to achieve this, I think that we have been able to solve, and we are in solving those structural issues today. He talks about registration of businesses. I'm telling you, today, it's much, much easier to register a company in Ghana than it was prior to 2017. And these are the processes. Today, most of I sit in the comfort of my home, I file my tax returns for my company, I pay my taxes. It is much easier. There's a more business-friendly environment. As to agric, some of these things, we actually recognized where we were in 2017. We brought out policies. We are pushing these policies through. And these are not events in themselves. They are processes that will materialize over time. As to whether there is even access to it, within COVID and all of that, we brought out agencies, the Ghana Employment, GEA, NUI, NEIP, all had avenues to support young people to get into entrepreneurship. Because government has admitted, and no country has been able to develop by expanding the public sector.
Let me pick your thoughts briefly on job creation and making national service non-mandatory.
Job creation, we on record. With the public sector, we have created 1.2 million jobs over between 2017 and 2022. That's the public sector. In the private sector, it's also supported by data from SNET. Over 970,000 jobs. That's what we have been. That's our record. Let's compare it to the previous administration. That's where we are. When you talk of national service, I was just mentioning to you. I had mentioned it earlier on. You see, the numbers today are not the numbers a while ago. When I was in Legon, the whole population of Legon, all the students at every level, was about 10,000. That's like 24, 25 years ago. I'm sure when he was in Legon, they were even smaller. Today, Legon's population is over 100,000. How many students graduate even just from Legon? And given all the other private universities, the numbers are up through the roof. It's true. Before I left Legon, I was employed by a private company. Well, they came on campus and employed us right from the School of Administration, then now the business school. That is the sort of thing we want to encourage. So that companies, Unilever then will come into Legon and employ people and then put them on national service and let them start whatever management programs. We are not scrapping it at all. But ask yourself, how did this whole national service scheme come into play? It was a particular time in the life of this nation where we needed the intervention of students to go and catch cocoa. Stuff like that's how come this whole thing. Look, initially in the 80s, when this whole thing started, about half of them will even go for military training. Those were times when we were under CDO, CDR, and things like so they transform from being students right into the CDO, CDR, and then they lead. We don't need that today. So why don't we make it optional? The numbers are so up there. I tell you, when postings come out, and you're in parliament, you have to be dodging because your constituents come, I want to do my service in parliament. If you know that whole situation. So why can't we reform the system? Why can't we move away? Move away from there. And I totally support this whole thing. The National Union of Ghana Students has come out to support it. Let's give the options to those who can go out without having to go through that compulsory 1-year service. If they can have the opportunities, let's get them that opportunities. So the rest who really want to do national service can come and do national service. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's the policies that will move us on to the transformed Ghana that we all want to see and enjoy. Those are the
Franklin
things
has
we are
a
looking
quick
at.
intervention. Let me take that out.
Yeah,
I'll
please.
come back to you. Franklin.
The story about the government's intention to raise about 180 billion Ghana cedis from the domestic market through treasury bills, which will be 1% more than it raised in 2023. I think it's important to make the point that it needs to use this money prudently. Because as it is now, we are shut out of the international market. It doesn't mean that we can borrow domestically and splurge as well. It is important that whatever they are going to apply this money to must be sensibly applied.
Right.
And that should also mean that people are at least, and because the economy it has not so many areas to invest your money and then make productive returns, people still believe in government securities, in spite of the fact that we've virtually been pickpocketed. But you see, which is why I think government should be clear and clever not to misuse this money, because 180 billion is a lot of money.
Right. Thank you very much.
Just quickly before
Yeah.
I finish. Dr. Sarkodie was speaking about being fiscally prudent in an election year.
Yeah.
You recollect again, in 2017, this government passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act. One of the first acts we passed in Parliament to ensure that we keep a tab on the fiscals and create space for ourselves so that we can pursue the transformational agenda that time applies so much. Because if you don't have the fiscal space, you cannot do anything. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on Wednesday even went beyond to say that he will go on to ensure, get the act amended to ensure that expenditure is not more than 105% of the previous year's tax revenue. And that is what you call prudence. That is what you call prudence.
Right.
That is what we aim at doing to ensure that we are able to transform this economy for Council Apianankwa.
Right. Honorable Minister, election year 2024, fiscal discipline.
So the Fiscal Responsibility Act, you fail to say that act has been suspended.
Of course, there were.
No. Oh,
No, you say it as if we passed it. There were reasons. And those reasons were put
God.
in the act.
No.
When you were saying that, when you were talking, what did I say
But
anything?
has it been suspended or not?
No.
It's fine. It's been suspended.
When COVID struck.
Oh,
when
God.
COVID struck.
God.
When COVID struck, government revenues were cut.
Okay.
Okay, that's okay.
And
That's fine.
We still had to spend money.
Thank
to
you.
save
Thank
money.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The fact is that
It's suspended.
It is suspended.
Thank
because
you. Just like the VAT on
those
electricity.
reasons were also in the act.
Thank you.
Those reasons were also in the act.
Thank you.
That allows the minister to
But the crux of the matter is that
the
it's
minister
been
has to come to
suspended.
parliament to suspend the act because
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
force majeure is.
I wasn't going to talk about the suspension until he said that Bawumia said he will review that one. And I know that as we sit today, there's no law to be reviewed. It has been suspended.
Oh.
No, that's number one. Number two.
That's just for clarity. It's only clarity.
No. The way he said it. The way he said it.
Fuseni.
The act itself is not suspended, but that provision.
No, the whole act is
Hussein.
suspended. The whole act is
Hussein.
suspended. Now, so the second thing is that the 73, I've listened to my brother very carefully. The 73 page, nowhere is agric mentioned. Nowhere.
No.
Oh, go back. So that's the thing.
No, he says you put some lime in the
It's not
soil.
true.
In the soil. So
He says
the
put
whole,
some-
well, you can go back.
he says
While
put
I'm
some
talking,
lime.
I'll tell you where I
No,
got
he
this
talks
mention.
about agricultural growth from paragraph 17.
Yeah, he says to put
growth.
Growth.
No,
But what we are going to do in Agric
No,
is
but-
vision for Agric. What is it about? There's some of the 3-page. What is his vision for
He
Agric?
says we put lime in the soil.
Now, so
Oh no, but he said that.
so you put lime in the soil so that
To fix the acidic nature of our soils, and you are saying he didn't say anything about agriculture. No, get it.
So-
He said that he didn't say it. But
so you have established that.
It's not the only one.
It's fine.
So,
It's fine.
the Minister of Labour, the Minister of Labour said in Parliament 2021 that he had created 3,000 jobs. I just listened to him, my brother, who said 1 point something in the public sector and 900 in the private sector. How do you reconcile that with the Minister of Employment saying that they created 3,000 jobs at the job in 2021? At the job fair, he said he created 3 million jobs. Then at the jobs fair, he said they had created 5,300,000 jobs. Bawumia in 2023, April said 2,200 and 2,200.
2,200 jobs.
No, 200,
That's
2.2 million.
One factory.
No, 2.2 million. And then before that, on the 7th day of February 2024, no, just recently, he said
Oh no, but I can give you the details of the 2.1 million.
2.1.
Yeah,
so I'm
I
just
can
saying that, look, so we've got a lot of people saying different things, including Bawumia himself. But I'm going to conclude my statement. My brother, what he did was trying to be disingenuous. Even when he tried to repair the damage, he decided that he would take the ban from 2013 to 2016. But in the MPP, he took the ban from 2017 to date. You know the number of years in between. When he was given, when he wanted to be fair, he took the ban from 2013.
13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what you did. No, I'm just reminding you, maybe you forgot because you were speaking. You didn't.
You want me to tell you why I took 2013?
So you see, let me see. You see the economy. What type of economy did the MPP inherit? The MPP and Bawumia inherit in 2016.
17.
In 2017. So budget deficit was 6.1. No, so. And today it rose up to 15% in 2020.
2020?
Yes, and then came down to 12% in 2022.
It wasn't 15%.
Now growth in 2016 was 3.6%. In 2023, it fell to 1.5%.
After the economy went through COVID.
Oh, I'm just
And
giving
then
you the
recovery
statistics.
more.
We are talking about the statistics.
Yeah, but I'm explaining.
No, so I don't know what
cannot
results.
quote the
Debt to
stats without
GDP.
explanation.
Debt to GDP was 57%, way below the middle income level. 57%. It rose to 104 in 2022.
Economy is not growing.
It's not growing. It was not growing. And then the inflation.
I like it when you.
Inflation was 15.4%
Yeah.
in 2016.
It has reduced from 54% in February.
Oh,
of last year.
Oh, so it got to 54%.
Yeah, it went to 50.
It went to
Yes,
54%.
Yes, in
Because-
January,
because-
23% in December.
Yes, so
2022.
No. So I'm just telling you, we are giving statistics.
2022.
We are giving statistics, and I'm taking the baseline, 2016, 2023.
Oh, I thought you would take from.
No, I'm just like, so when it comes to your turn, you can listen.
On always kind.
Unemployment.
When I started work, inflation was like
Now,
80%
the
in Ghana.
54%, when it went to 54%, and that was a combined effect of the printing of the currency and the mismanagement of the economy. It pushed, according to the World Bank, it pushed 800,000 people into poverty. Now, the unemployment in 2016 it stood at 8.4%.
When you had unemployed graduates.
Yes, unemployment. Even when we had unemployed graduates, the unemployment rate was, and by the Ghana Statistical Service, was 8.4%. Today it's 14%. 14%, even with the creation of the job, 14% unemployment. Now, food inflation then stood at 8.7% in 2016. Today, it's 28.7% food inflation. Now, the lending rate when the economy was in a mess that they took with their bones, or with bones, no meat, bones. Lending rate was 26%.
What was the Citi depreciation?
Well, what I'm saying is that the lending rate, we're talking about the economy. We're not talking about the Citi depreciation, I'm talking about the economy.
It's also a very important
indicator. But today, the lending rate, my brother who says they are doing well, is 32%. So when you borrow money, you pay 32% interest. Now, the industrial sector in 2016 grew by 4.3%. Today it's negative 1.2%. The manufacturing sector grew by 7.9% in 2016. Today it's negative 1%. The construction sector grew by 8.4% in 2016. Today it is negative 5%. Now, so let's talk about the living dry bones. Now, in 2016, the NDC government under John Dramani Mahama left in the sinking fund $250 million. Now, that was what was used by the MPP government in 2017 to retire the balance of Kufuor's Eurobond of $750 million. Now, in 2016, John Dramani Mahama left $270 million in the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. That is what you are currently using to build Agenda 111. In 2016, John Dramani Mahama left $250 million in the stabilization fund. And when we were in Parliament, that was the first port of call when you wanted to raid government funds.
When COVID struck.
Yes.
And we needed to save lives.
So
Put it in the right structure.
if there were dry bones, you wouldn't have anywhere to go.
When we needed to save lives.
I agree. Save lives.
There were projections saying that by July.
Now let's go to the cocoa sector. In 2016, NDC left office with the cocoa production standing at 969,000 metric tons production level. Today, it's at 500 million, and even companies are importing cocoa from Ivory Coast
and Nigeria.
Now,
would I have time to react to some of this?
No,
let's take this. But I should have time.
The figures as they are. I mean, I don't know what reaction you want to react to.
No. John Dramani Mahama.
When you say we import cocoa,
he didn't say we import. He said companies. He didn't say Ghana. Yes.
I mean, you saw the circular. The companies did it on their own.
Of course, they had the blessing.
So when you say
so that's it.
When you say we,
he did not say
Ghana.
we.
When you say
Ghana.
He said companies.
Ghana.
No, companies.
They import the cocoa.
They are
not
importing cocoa. But
when they import the cocoa, they don't send it to Burkina Faso.
Don't do this.
They don't send it to.
Wrap up for me.
Okay.
Because my senior brother has been disingenuous with the figures. He's been disingenuous with the figures.
You know that at the time that the NDC was in office, there was only one oil field, and I was at the Minister of Energy as Deputy Minister.
It is my trouble.
Today, there are 3 oil fields. So NDC invested and brought to production 2 additional oil fields, and that gave the MPP administration 2 additional revenue streams. Now, lastly, the IMF they said we were so incompetent that we went into. The whole IMF program then was $937 million. NDC took only the first tranche of $300 million. The $637 million came to the MPP. You understand? So when you talk about, you see, No, not that. No. They were given. They were given. They were given in tranches. You had to even extend. You had to extend our IMF program.
All the indicators.
No.
We're in Parliament. We're in Parliament together.
No. So the program that you said we had gone there because of incompetence. The MPP government extended it. Now, all that points to one clear picture, that these people can never be trusted. If you look at the Auditor General's report on the utilization of the COVID funds. He's talked about COVID. It is just a report on how not to use public funds prudently.
All right. Thank you. Let me come to you, Andrew, and then pick your thoughts on the economy and going into the election.
Yeah, I get a last bite, right?
Yeah, so I think as the state of the economy is clear. And there's, something very critical that you can't even quantify. When it comes to the lack of credibility of Ghana's economy, lack of credibility, because this is about the 17th time we've been to the IMF. Never has there been attack on the belief that the most secured bond to take is the government bonds. Currently, we know that government bonds are not that safe. No. And that perception, that belief, you understand, among citizens of this country, amongst the international community, that belief that government of Ghana's bonds are not secured will take more than a generation to reverse. You understand? And the fact that the person who led us into this calamity, you understand, right now wants to be president, as in Becker's belief that the MPP will be that reckless to present such a person to Ghana. But you see, the economist said something very critical. He said that what the IMF program does for you is that it gives you stability.
Stability, yes.
You understand? It is up to you to then build on that stability. When we went to the IMF in 2016, you understand, we had the opportunity, that stability. We, as a people, have failed to build on that stability because of the Koshoko leadership, economic leadership granted us by Bawumia. You understand? Now, also, you see the way in their desperate attempts to extricate His Excellency Dr. Bawumia from the mess that he's created, they are putting forward an argument that I think is very critical to Ghanaians. The argument that says that when you are going to vote in 2024 to decide into whose hands you place your executive powers, you are not going to place it into the hands of a political party. That bit is true. We have never placed our executive powers into the hands of political parties. We place executive powers into the hands of individuals. All what the parties they do is to sponsor certain individuals. You understand? So then it means that it will be reckless just to put your executive powers into the hands of a person only because that person claims to belong to a certain political party. It will be very reckless. And when we're going to make that decision, Ghanaians need to interrogate not only the purported visions of the person standing, but also their credibility, their character, and most importantly, their track record, both in private life and in public life. You understand? We all agree that where we are as a people, we need a program, we need a plan that will transform our economy. Because when it comes to a vision espoused by all of us, by His Excellency Bawumia, by His Excellency John Mahama, by Honorable Alan Chimanten, you understand? Honorable Alan Chimanten is promising a jobs and cash economy, an economy that will provide to the people of Ghana prosperity. John Mahama is saying 24-hour economy. Bawumia is saying he's going to create a certain net that you can tap and then you get some resources. All of these programs cannot be achieved unless the economy is transformed. Right. So then what it also requires from us is to look into the programs, the plan presented by each candidate as to how they are going to achieve this transformation. Right. You understand? And I say, if you are going to be honest, and if you are going to honestly and analyze critically those programs. One, first of all, you need to delete one person because he's been given a chance he couldn't transform. Yes, and when clearly, his Excellency John Mahama has also been given opportunity, he couldn't transform. It is critical that we give the great transformational plan this opportunity. We give Honorable Alanche the opportunity.
A former cabinet minister.
Yeah, but like he did themselves. They said he, the economic management team, was just advising. That's why I said this cabinet minister has put in place a comprehensive 10-point transformation agenda, but he was not controlling how we spend our money. Bawumia was controlling. How much money did they give them? They put 400 million in 1D1F. 400 million. Bawumia himself said he put 400 million in 1D1F. Bawumia himself said he was going to formalize the economy. You know, when you formalize the economy, there are three things. You must also grow the enterprises. You must also put money into the enterprises. How much money did he put all the money in digitization? Talking about public sector services. That's what he said. You were talking about public sector services. So,
Which was equally important, wasn't it?
I'm not saying it's not important, but you say you want to transform the economy and you want to do it so by formalizing. That's what he said. So it means that you must show that commitment by telling us how much money you placed in growing the enterprises, how much money you grew in even registering the enterprise, how much money you expended, you understand, in putting capital injection in those enterprises. And he didn't do that.
Right.
I'm saying that he's out. Let us give Honorable Alanche a chance.
Okay.
The man who's 40 is actually in building enterprises through Empretech, through Enterprise Africa. Who's 40 is in creating markets, because we know that after you do your transformation, you also need trade, a very comprehensive trade policy. Is it not strange that the whole colonialism and all those things started after the industrial revolution? Because the countries that were industrially transformed needed markets. That's why they came to colonize us. Fortunately, this Alanche has created for us a market, the African Continental Free Trade market already. The biggest, he himself, Bawumia, said we have the biggest market now. Now the person who has created it, whose forte is in building enterprise, whose forte is in building industry, as in a world-class expertise in building enterprises, whose credibility, whose character isn't in doubt. Ghanaians should not miss this opportunity at having real leadership, at having real transformation. We should not miss the opportunity. And in 2024, 7 December, we should put our executive powers into the hands of Alan John Kojo Chimantin.
Andrew,
and
thank
we'll
you.
get a cash end.
30 seconds.
Final.
Yes, 30 seconds. Final words on this.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is laid down his vision and priorities. For me, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia represents the future. He has had an opportunity to serve as a vice president, and he's laid down his vision, priorities, when Ghanaians give him the chance. My friend here, Mr. Pia Dankwa, is talking about a minister and a vice president. And I tell him, and he's talking about amounts that went into the coffers at the ministry. A minister runs a budget. When you read our budgets, a minister annually has appropriations going to his ministry. And the minister, by a large extent, has the discretion. He has brought his programs for the year. Albeit the government resources will be prorated at a point, but he runs a budget.
Right.
Relative to a vice president who runs under the Office of Government Machinery. What do you expect?
30 seconds is up.
Hussein,
Oh.
thank you. That's Franklin. Yes, it is 30 seconds. Yes,
Franklin, you of all
Franklin.
people, I thought you were going to give me your 30 seconds.
Long enough to know that when you ride on the shoulders of one man to power, you fail. So Liban failed because he rode on the shoulders of Okuche Bukwe to power. Bawumia will fail, so we shouldn't give him that opportunity because he has no gravitas in the MPP. His Bawumia is like a mistletoe. He's springing up on the shoulders of Nana Akufo-Addo. And so if you vote Bawumia into office, you are indirectly putting Nana Akufo-Addo in office.
Thank you.
Why did you mention
Franklin.
I thought you were
Franklin, 30 seconds.
I think we are in the position of the ceiling.
Hussein, please.
And
Franklin.
what we expect is that the campaign season should bring forth a lot of useful policies and useful ideas. Because where we are right now, we want creative ideas that can be measured. You know, forget that the only politician in this dispensation that had been able to at least put some numbers to the revenues that he was likely to raise was Dan Lathy. he said he was going to mobilize resources to the tune of $840 billion at the time, which meant that by the time you would have run the first term, you would have raised 7.2 trillion US dollars, which would have rivaled that of the UK economy. But you see, he may have been fanciful, but he had some numbers to rate. The current politicians we have don't do any quantification, and we are going to measure them based on the promises they make, how realistic they are, how quantifiable they are. But today, we want measurable, should I say, promises that can deliver us from the we currently are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Franklin. Dr. Adusako, final take.
Yes, thanks so much. I think we have listened to Dr. Bawumia, and we are waiting for Mr. Mahama and the chairman team to bring their visions so that we can interrogate it, and I'm an economist, we take the economic side and we can compare. And of course, Ghanaians will learn from their visions, and that will inform their voting pattern. But to conclude, I want to submit that we all commit, the leaders must commit to their visions and their promises, so that first on the plate should be how to avert the cost of living, because that's what every Ghanaian is looking for, to make sure that the cost of living is being reduced. And I think, so whether it's Dr. Bawumia or Mr. Mahama or Mr. Alan Shamantin, the first thing to me should be about the cost of living, and then I'll move on to the next page. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adusako, an economist, joining us via Zoom. We also had Franklin Kujo, president of Imani Africa, also joining via Zoom. In studio, Fuseni Issa, former MP Okaikwe North, and of course, his big brother, Inusa Fuseni, former MP Tamale Central. And of course, we had Andrew Apia Danko, a private legal practitioner and a member for Movement for Change. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much. My name is Nana Tufuo Boateng. This has been The Big Issue. Stay with us on Facebook, though, because on Facebook we're streaming live the funeral of Dr. Ebenezer Ni Amataki. Thank you so very much for your time, and have a great weekend.